Welcome to Farming for Health, where Farmer Lee Jones and I talk with leaders in food, farming, and health and wellness to spread knowledge and inspire a plant forward future, starting now. Welcome to the Farming for Health podcast. I'm Dr. Amy Sapola, joined by Farmer Lee Jones today and Chef Aaron Bludorn. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. Well, we're thrilled to have you. And, one of the things I wanted to just start off with is just hearing a little bit more about you and what led you to be in the culinary industry.
Well, so I'm originally from Bainbridge Island, Washington, which is a small island across the Puget Sound from Seattle. So you take a ferry over there. I grew up, just pretty normal childhood, but started cooking as a job when I was 16 years old, working at our local Greasy Spoon diner. I was actually recently just went back. It's refreshing to see that there's still high schoolers working all over the town and various restaurants and whatnot. Anyway, so for me that was just a job, a way to make money, support myself. When I went to college, worked in restaurants as well. Uh, Not so much for college, but I got more interested in restaurants and started, working full time in a restaurant. Dropped out of school. Really wanted to continue in this career and decided to get more serious about it. And went to the Culinary Institute of America, studied there, got my AOS, and then uh, decided to kind of go out into the world and get experience. So I started working at Canlis, which is where in Seattle, and then moved from there to this down to wine country in Sonoma County and worked at Cyrus, which was actually recently reopened, but this is back in 2006, and worked there for 3 years under Michelin-starred Chef Douglas Keene, and got the stars while I was there, and all this exciting things that happened at that restaurant was, I was too far in at that point. So I moved to New York City at his recommendation. He told me, I thought I was always going to live out west. I didn't see any need to work in New York City, but Doug was very adamant that I needed to gain experience in New York and work for some of the chefs out there. And one of those chefs that he recommended was Daniel Boulud. So he was able to set up a stage, trail day with me with Danielle. Um, Got to learn the restaurant and found myself at Café Boulud with Gavin Kaysen, who's a chef from now he's in. He was a chef at Café Boulud at the time. Now he's in Minnesota, from Spoon and Stable and Demi and a few others. I know he's a good friend of Farmer Lee as well. Uh,
Yeah, back in his hometown, right? Or home
yeah,
state at least. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so I got a lot of experience from him. And I thought I was going to bounce around, but every time I went to leave Café Boulud, Gavin always said, "Well, we got something else for you." Okay, all right. Well, so I stayed, and then the last time I told, we sat down and had a talk. He's like, "Well, I'm leaving." Like, wait a minute. I was supposed to be the one that was moving on. He's like, "And I'm recommending that you take my position." So almost like that movie, The Santa Claus, where the Santa Claus, Tim Allen, the Santa Claus falls off the roof and he assumes the role. That's what I did. So I was the chef at Café Boulud for 5 years. Again, it just was one of those things that just sort of snowballed, and I told Danielle that I would do 5 years with him as the chef, and I did. And when it came time to leave, I had recently gotten married, and the girl that I married, my wife Victoria, was from Houston, and we wanted to start a family, and so we ended up here. So yeah, that's how I got into it in my whole career up to now.
And Cafe Boulud has been such a launching pad for so many great chefs. I mean, even before Gavin, Andrew Carmelini,
Yep.
uh, and of course he started in Vermilion, Ohio, 20 miles down the road from us.
Yeah,
He was
there
just
you go.
back in town. Yeah, he was just back in town over the weekend to see his parents. And
Nice.
it was like a reunion at the Danielle 30th anniversary, which is where I saw you last. And
Yeah.
oh my God, that was like incredible walk through memory lane down there.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure for you. Yeah, it definitely was for me. Yeah, and then there's also other chefs you don't even think about that are super successful today, like Mario Carbone and Rich Teresi met at Café Boulud, I think. Who was it? David Chang. Andrew likes to tell the story about how he fired David Chang from Café Boulud. There's so many, like countless chefs have been through those doors, and it's yeah, it was definitely a big proving ground, and very fun at the same time.
Well, we're pretty excited to have you here for Roots in 23. And, we've had a couple of year hiatus because of COVID. So this is our first year back since 18. And there's a lot of excitement around it. And of course, the theme is Roots Regenerate. And you're going to be speaking there and hopefully cooking. And it's going to be a pretty amazing event. And it'll be a reunion of its own sort. Get
Yeah.
to see a lot of folks connected in some way, shape, or form throughout the industry. Uh, what, as it relates to what you're going to talk about there with, kitchen mental health and Roots Regenerate, can you give us a preview of sort of what your thoughts are on that, where you're going to go with it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's obviously for me, it's one of those things that's the most important. I'm constantly looking after the well-being of my team and my staff, and mainly, I mean, for the most, from a just a purely, I don't know, conscious driven, for a more of like even think about the quality. It affects everything, right? You have to have a kitchen team that's happy, and if I think some of these, there's been a lot of I'd say parts of our industry that have been called into question over the last few years, and with the idea that kitchens are hard, and yes, they are, and kitchens can be breeding ground for negative energy or potentially harassment, whether it's just verbal, mental, sexual, wherever it is. We've gotten a lot of bad press about those things, and with those things flying around. And I personally, having ran kitchens for the last 10 years, don't put up for any of that. And I feel as though our industry is very professional, and has the potential to, and I would say that there are bad actors in there who do not adhere to these, just general decency uh, ideas, and that in turn does not allow, create a positive environment. And you can be the most talented chef in the world, but if you're not fostering a positive environment, positive kitchen for people to work in, you can only be so great for so long, because it's not you as the chef that's amazing and making things happen. It's your team that's doing it for you in and out. You
Yeah.
Right. Or
What do
so
you what
yeah,
do you do with your team? Like, what are some of the ways that you keep like a little more of that positive energy around, and keep things,
yeah.
positive for
Um,
mental health? A message from our sponsor.
Farmer Jones Farm provides nutritious, regeneratively grown vegetables to home cooks nationwide. We seek to provide our community with vegetables grown in a way that's healthy for you and good for the planet. To learn more about Farmer Jones Farm, visit farmerjonesfarm.com.
well, there's a lot of things. You make sure that everyone knows that they're there for their careers, first and foremost, and that they're building something. They're not just there getting a paycheck every day, although that's important. It's important for people to be paid, compensated properly. Um, but I think one of the things I always think about is what are the things that I really enjoyed, because I always felt like I had the happiest time as a cook. I constantly say that, when you get into management, you become a sous chef, a chef, you're, God forbid, owning a restaurant. it sucks a lot of the fun out of it. Because and so I think a lot about what kitchens I was in and what did I enjoy, and I enjoyed having a mentor that I came in to work hard for, that I constantly could not find enough hours in the day to get everything done that I wanted to, and but push myself every day. Work is work; it's hard, and I think there's this problem where we're confusing mental health sometimes these days with hard work, and you know there's a difference there. I always knew that I was working towards something, and looking to be where I am today, and I always gave myself goals. And so what I like to do is I like to bring that back to all of our cooks and each and every cook, and have sit downs with them and ask them what their goals are for being here, and where do they see themselves in a year, 6 months, or 5 years. And understanding what their goals are, it helps you create sort of a different experience for them in your kitchen. If they tell you flat out they don't want to be a chef, and one day they'd like to be a food writer or whatever, I understand that. That's okay. That doesn't exclude you from being in my kitchen or being a part of the team. That just makes me want to give you the full experience and in the time frame that you're looking for. And I think as long as we're honest with each other, we're able to give people that experience. Now, so we do that, and that's very important. I am very adamant that there's no personal attacks by the sous chefs, and that's not tolerated. No one. It's not one of those environments that it's where people are getting people down. Yes, sometimes it's a high stress environment, and there's going to be a points of contention, and people, maybe yelling or this, that, or the other. But the reality is, if that happens, there needs to be a follow up. Pretty much after the dust clears, I make sure that any of us on our team knows that they're going to go take that cook or whoever those harsh words were said to, and then it needs to be explained, and there needs to be a goal moving forward with that. And that to me is very important, because again, I see this as almost like a finishing school, or like like your post grad. You graduate culinary school, and you do a few rounds as a cook, a line cook, to get ready to be a sous chef, and you have to be learning from each and every experience, and most importantly, your mistakes. So we do that. I make sure that all of our sous chefs sort of fit that mold as a nurturer, as a teacher, so people know at the end of the day that their hard work that they're putting in, they're walking away with something that they can use later on in their careers, and hopefully build upon. Then we do other things, like there's always we have contests, or I was just talking with our executive chef Chase at Bludorn. He's talking about doing a culinary Olympics, where there's a bracket system where people are going around doing, or we'll have a pie contest and everyone gets involved there. We'll order pizza after a busy Saturday night, which might not seem like it's not a huge expense for us, and it's you're like, well, you're in a kitchen anyway, but like, that's like ordering Domino's. Sometimes everyone likes that after a busy service,
Right.
and you don't even have to think about it, and it's your team taking, or your chef taking care of you, and that's something I feel very confident is fun for everyone. But
Just
yeah,
the acknowledgement alone, let alone the pizza.
yeah,
The
exactly.
acknowledgement from them, that's huge. Now, what are you? I know Gavin's been doing like some 4 days on, 3 days off kind of things with the work staff um, up there. What are you doing with your work schedule to get that balance?
Well, for sure, it's everyone has a 5 day week, and as much as we
Yeah,
can, we accommodate everyone's schedule. And you know what? Actually, a lot more people are getting 3 days off more and more. It's not something but some people want to work more, um,
right,
and
right.
and
Yeah,
and
that's
they
true.
need to work more financially. So
Right.
I do make sure that we balance both of those things. And making sure that people are able to make a living wage, and that's super important.
Finding the right balance for every individual is a real key, isn't it?
Yes, yes. It's not an easy task, and
Right.
we do our best, and but I think the days of people working 6 days are over. We're not doing that anymore, and especially for the management team, because for so long, that was the second you went from hourly to salary, it was just just meant you were working more. But I honestly, I mean, as a cook, I draw back to my own experience. I wanted to be in the kitchen as much as possible because I had a goal.
Right.
And in some cases, I feel really bad for these kids that aren't able. Like labor laws are different. In California, I was in shift pay, and we would go in early. We'd go in at 10:30, 11, especially if we have a new dish on that day, or we knew we had something going on, and we just because we wanted to be set up on time. We wanted to take that 30, maybe like I'd say 30 minutes. It's more like 5 minutes to go have an espresso outside and watch the sunset before service or whatever it was. Um,
Right.
and and you wanted to have a great day because you're a professional, and you were treated that way. You were treated as though that what you did mattered, and and that is so important for people to walk away with that worth, that sense of self-worth at the end of a hard day's work, that they know that what they're doing is for them, not just for the restaurant to make the restaurant money, but then also to build their own careers.
I think that's such a great example. And when we're talking about kind of like filling your own cup, what do you do for your own self-care? Like, how do you take care of yourself as a busy restaurant owner and all the things you're doing?
Oh, I spend time with my family.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. I've gotten better. I used to work 6 days, every 6 or 7, and maybe around a restaurant opening there's some of that, but um, trying to get back to where I can take 2 days off every week, and actually it's a Saturday and Sunday, which is crazy for me, but to feel like I'm allowed to do that, which is it's still a struggle for me. And getting to that point, but you know what? I did it to myself. That's what I've come up doing, and I understand that that's something that I need to work on, and that's my own issue. Um, Outside of that, I love going to see music. You can probably see in the background. I go see Fish a fair amount when I can.
Nice. I love that.
So that's a way to blow off steam. Yeah, watch football on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Easy things. I
Yeah.
don't need much. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, and running actually has been something that I've really, it's a way for me to sort of process what's going on in the day, and let things go.
Yeah. So, how about hospitality? We'll shift gears a little bit. So, one of the other things you're going to talk about is hospitality and the guest experience. When it comes to hospitality, how do you really create that great guest experience?
Well, first of all, so I have my partner. His name's Sharif Mbuj. Has been my partner for a long time. He's also, a partner in our business as well. He's our director of operations, part owner, of all of our restaurants, and him and I have been together a long time. And he is the hospitality wing of our business. But I think a lot of where we come, where our restaurant group um, uh, brings that out, is through thinking about what experiences we would like for ourselves, and thinking about the guest experience through the guest's eyes, and what what makes sense, what doesn't. We've kind of started this casual luxury uh, brand down here, where it's fine dining, but it's without white tablecloths. It's not with tasting menus. It's more geared towards what the guest wants. We have a burger on the menu. We do our best to make it the best burger you've ever had. But if you're coming to our restaurant, I don't want to have a situation where my ego of not having a burger on the menu or where that's something that's cheapening my experience. I think it's enriching it, and in fact, it's become one of those things where people get a burger, they cut it into fours, and they each get a little bite along with all the other dishes that they order. And so it really is, I feel like true luxury and true hospitality is giving the guests to choose choose what they want out of this experience, giving them plenty of options, every option, anything that they want to do. If they want to do a tasting menu, we're happy to do that. But letting it be on their terms, and letting people decide how they want their experience to unfold, and then leaving it in our hands to create that, And I think that that's what both Bludorn and Navy Blue have become known for down in Houston, is the ability to take those restaurants so many different avenues based on what you're looking for. Is it a night with friends? Are you hanging out and going crazy, and more of it's very like we're going to cover the table with apps and then do the same with entrees, and then everyone's just kind of sharing everything? Or is it a business dinner where you don't want to share and you want to have your own appetizer, your own entree, and it's more formal? Or is it sitting at the bar and enjoying some oysters and a beer, or enjoying some oysters and a bottle of champagne? We can do all of that, and we feel like our restaurants are set up to do any and everything. And that's kind of what's fun for me from a hospitality standpoint, and giving the guests exactly.
I mean, that's the future, and probably goes the same for whether it can be casual or if you want to put a suit and tie on.
Exactly. It does not mean you can walk in wearing a t-shirt and you'll be just fine. And
I bet you guys would even let me in a pair of overalls.
I bet you we would. In fact, I know we would.
Although I know that Dr. Amy actually looks way better in a pair of overalls and a red bow tie than me. She did it once. And,
I do dress up from time to time.
It's actually become one of the coolest Halloween costumes, I'd have to say.
Yeah. That's why I wore it.
Do it for Halloween costumes, yeah.
In fact, I really appreciate the onesie you sent for Gregory's birth. Peter wears it now. It was a hand-me-down.
Is that right? Yeah, I love it.
That's one of my favorites. Those are so cute.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like the book, Yes is the Answer, What is the Question, in regards to hospitality.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I love it.
And that's what we pride ourselves on, and it really works with Houston. Houston is a city that there's so many different types of people. It's very diverse. So there's a lot of diverse wants and needs out of a restaurant, and we're happy to provide that.
When it comes to like the guests knowing where their food's coming from too, at your restaurants, can you talk to us about that piece?
So yeah, absolutely. I'm not big on, writing menus with a lot of different names on them. I like our menus to be very small and concise. It's all about education with the staff, and talking about that. So if the guest is inclined to know more about the story, the servers are equipped with that information. We talk about it all the time, and we talk about, if we do want to, because tableside manner is a big part of what we train our front of house staff on, and how do we get in tune with that? And it's through education, it's through talking, and it's through having our chefs present at lineup. We do lineup every day, and whenever there's a new dish, we're always talking about each ingredient and where it's from and why it's special. And that's I go back to working for Danielle, and I remember his big thing is that every dish needs to have a story, or needs to have some intent. Now that story doesn't have to be that this is my grandmother's recipe from 100 years ago and I'm recreating it in that way. The story can actually be, where is the vegetable from, and where does the vegetable grow, and why is the vegetable so important there, and why was I drawn to that vegetable and creating this dish, and that to me is very important. And then if we want to get into a bigger ethos of that, why is it so important to come from a farm that uses sustainable practices, or use farm fish that's farmed in a sustainable manner? I'm also a ambassador for Originating salmon, and I use them because growing up in the Pacific Northwest, the number one pollutant in the Puget Sound were farmed salmon. It was such a big thing, and they've since outlawed it, thank God. But it's so important to realize that there's real consequences to the food that we eat and the food that we strive to put on our menus, and that we need to be responsible as chefs to, at least do our part to make sure that that we're using products that are grown sustainably and grown in a way that that's also really healthy for guests. I think it's very important.
Absolutely. When it comes to cooking at home, what's your favorite meal to cook for like you and your family? A message from our sponsor. Farming for Health is brought to you by Farmer Jones Farm at the Chef's Garden. Farmer Jones Farm provides nutritious, regeneratively grown vegetables to home cooks nationwide. If you are searching for vegetables grown in a way that's healthy for you and good for the planet, try a curated box from Farmer Jones Farm. Get 15% off your order with the code FarmingForHealth15.
I am notoriously awful at this. I mean, we don't do it enough. But no, whatever I can pick up from the restaurant and throw on a grill and get it up in 30 minutes. I don't know. No. I every once in a while. I always talk about a dish that my grandfather used to bring back on Christmas Eve, which is cioppino. My mom's from the Bay Area, and it was something I always remember. He brought it back from this place, Spangers, come in like the tub or whatever. And it was very not sexy at all, but it's just what we ate for Christmas Eve, probably because my grandmother didn't want to cook, and it was also fish and whatever. But on Christmas Eve, whenever I can, I do cook that meal. And it's a one pot dish that I like to cook, and I make the base with the tomato and fennel and everything, garlic and whatnot, and then you add the seafood one by one. Obviously, the ones that take the longest to cook go in first, and then you just keep adding until you have this full pot of just brothy seafood stew, and serve it with garlic bread. So that one's great, and the cleanup is minimal, because that's the other thing too. I remember when I first started cooking, I'd come home from culinary school and I'd literally just be a nightmare. And I'd cook everything. I'm like, all right, you guys do the dishes, I cook. And the horror on everyone's face. Now I like to clean everything too. So I want to make it as nice and streamlined as possible and delicious.
And I'm sure they appreciate that. That's
Absolutely.
the only downside to cooking at home is that pile of dishes that forms.
I know, right? You don't have a dishwasher at home.
Right.
You or your younger brother.
Yeah. So if someone's looking to cook a vegetable forward meal at home, do you have any great tips when it comes to vegetable forward cuisine that you would tell someone some place to start?
Absolutely. I mean, so I didn't say this, but the first restaurant I worked at outside of moving, in college, was a vegetarian restaurant. So I spent 3 years at a vegetarian restaurant, and it's a lot of fun. I think I don't do it enough, but I think if you're doing something vegetable forward, you got to think of a theme. It can't just be a lot of vegetables. Here are all your grilled vegetables. Boom, do it.
Right.
I think there needs to be a theme that you kind of go off of. Something great could be making a really hearty ratatouille, and then taking each vegetable and then doing whole roasted pieces of that could be fun. Finding a way to stuff a vegetable with something else, making a vegetable pasta. If the pasta is the vehicle, you're just vegetarian. A lot of our vegetarian entrees at the restaurant are either a risotto or a pasta or something that that has some some sort of semblance of what it is. I mean, falafel is great because it's all vegetables there, but you're creating something that people feel like, you're not losing anything by not having meat or a protein involved there. Although the bean is a protein, but you know what I'm saying? Like, so I think that there's something to that. Um, I don't know, doing veggie taco night, because you can do, you can grill mushrooms and give them a taco seasoning and then still have all the same fixings that you would with any protein, but you're using like, meat, or you're using, I don't know, who knows, or you can even use things like jackfruit to create like a faux pulled pork or something like that. I don't know. I think vegetables have a huge place, and like using, think about, if you want like a meat substitute, or you want something that's a little bit meatier, thinking about something like an eggplant, because it does have a little bit more of those qualities and some of that umami flavor in there, and using that as maybe your centerpiece or whatever, so.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, you see, even if it's not vegetarian, I mean, there does seem to be a movement that the portions are smaller in protein and you see more vegetable, even if it's not center of the plate, but it's carrying its weight on the plate. I mean, from an environmental standpoint, from a health standpoint, which we're all concerned about. I mean, if you can get more vegetable into the diet and a little less protein, obviously Houston, you would think of as a meat-based place, but I'm sure folks are worried about their health there too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the easiest ways to do that is, instead of having a steak for yourself, share a steak. Because honestly, if I have a steak that's at the table and sides and everything, I'll have 2 slices of steak, and I'll be just as happy, if not happier, than having a full 12-ounce steak. There's no, I don't know, it's too much meat at that point.
And a half an hour later, you're definitely happier.
Yes.
That's just, sometimes it is. It's just too much meat.
Yeah.
And you feel uncomfortably full half hour after you've.
And weighed down, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
No, and also I think another reason is because proteins have gotten so expensive. I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's a perfect segue.
Maybe we have to raise the price of the vegetables.
I mean, look, if they're grown in a, I mean, there's just as much care in your vegetables as there are in plenty of meats all around, or at least as many, if not ton more care. So,
no doubt, but I was just joking.
I know you were.
And that's kind of a perfect segue into one of our wrap-up questions is, what is, our podcast is called Farming for Health, but what does farming for health mean to you?
Farming for health is, look, I mean, that's the most important thing we have in this world, is eating healthy food, because that allows us to stay here longer, right? And just feel better. And you're not going to feel better with a lot of what you get at the supermarket. Unfortunately, it's farmed in a way that's just kind of, it's not personal. There's not the care that's given to something. If you go to a farmer's market and you get to, that someone is putting so much care in growing their vegetables, that you can really trust what you're buying there, or, from Chef's Garden. I think that there's a ton of care, and having been there myself and getting to see all the people that contribute to each and every box that goes out of that farm is incredible. And I know there are other farmers that are striving to do what they do there, maybe not on the same scale, but have the same level of care. Because again, at the end of the day, we are what we put into our bodies, and that saying, "You are what you eat," is actually true. And the amount of energy that you have on a day-to-day basis, your happiness directly relates back to that. And that is exactly what farming for your health means. It's literally finding ways to get the best food to you or to the guests or to whomever. So that's what for me.
And and I've got to add, I mean, you are what you eat, but you are what the plant and the animal eats. And that's what's really exciting for us, is really the balance in the soil. So I'll be quiet. Dr. Amy, you go ahead with the questions. I had to add that in.
I love it.
That's
I love
great.
it.
Farmer Lee, do you have any more questions before we wrap up?
No, I'm just so excited to be on. And Chef, thank you for taking the time. And we're so looking forward to Roots this year, and excited to have you a part of it. It's really an honor. I can't wait for you to bring the kids. We got to get them on the farm, and we got to get them on a tractor.
Yes, one day, absolutely. My oldest son Gregory sees tractors and he just points, tractor. So yes, that'll be a big moment in his life.
Open invitation anytime.
Thank you. I'm honored to be attending. It's something I've always seen from afar, and just honored to be a part of it. It's huge. So big thank you, Farmer Lee. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, and we're so glad you were on the podcast today. Thank you for being a guest. If you want to leave our listeners with where to find you online and the name of your restaurants and where to find you in Houston as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram handle is @Aaron Bludorn. That's probably the easiest way to visibility wise. Our restaurants are Bludorn and Navy Blue, and it's @Bludorn HTX and @Navy Blue HTX are the Instagram handles, and the website is www.bludornrestaurant.com and www.navybluerestaurant.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much again for being on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Farming for Health. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Connect with Farmer Lee Jones and I on Instagram and Facebook.